Hellas is a third-person action-adventure game that combines melee combat and skills acquisition with map exploration. So far, so RPG. But labelling the latest release from Rogue Factor with 3 little letters barely scratches the surface of the game's complexities. From mechanics spanning several genres to a multi-layered story that unravels against a backdrop of war, loss, and supernatural mystery, here are just some of the ways that Hellas defies player expectations. Smashing together visceral action, Souls-like stamina management, atmospheric dread, sci-fi tech, exploration, deep world building, character progression, environmental puzzles, and investigative deduction, Hellas bends genre definitions. The game is set in the early 1990s, and you play as Remy, a man returning to Hadia, a fictional European nation that's been desecrated by civil war, in search of answers. Remy was smuggled out of the conflict when he was a child and hasn't had any contact with his parents since. Decades later, determined to hunt them down, he joins the UN peacekeeping forces and slips through Hadia's closed borders under the guise of a humanitarian mission. What Remy finds in Hadia leaves him confused. War has ravaged the land, but eerie and violent creatures roam the scorched earth. Faceless and heartless, these hollow walkers seem to be somehow linked to the nation's past, as well as the fate of its future. With more questions than answers, and no plan beyond finding his family, Remy scavenges a drone and a corroded sword from a mysterious fallen warrior before venturing deeper into the wilderness. The gameplay that follows alternates between intense combat encounters, semi-open world exploration, and piecing together leads and solutions from contextual clues, all with a distinct and deliberate lack of hand-holding. It's also of note that you experience Remy's journey in retrospect. The game's introductory cinematic shows him recounting his story to a grotesque interrogator, hooked up to a polygraph machine and an intravenous truth serum. If you die, this figure aggressively tells Remy that he's misremembered and to try again, before you respawn at the most recent save point. When it comes to combat, Remy's stamina and health share a status bar, and unlike in typical action games, restorative items are few and far between. As a result, a vital gameplay component is his Bloodborne-esque healing pulse ability. Activated by landing a sequence of blows, it functions like an enemy health steal and relies on precise timing to engage, meaning melee encounters require a considered and tactical approach. The drone also becomes an invaluable companion as you scour the landscape for clues and resources. Providing a light source, translation abilities, and a mosquito-like distraction around enemies is one of few forms of guidance and assistance players are given in Hellas. Through atmospheric soundscapes and sprawling environments, Hellas really exploits the unnerving thrill of being lost. In fact, immediately upon loading the game for the first time, players are met with a message warning them that they won't be provided with a map, waypoints, or quest markers. To thrive, you will need to pay attention to your environment, listen, and be vigilant. Rogue Factor refers to this intuition-driven approach as player plattering, the opposite of providing gamers with ready-made solutions and pointers on a silver platter. Instead of a shopping list of objectives, Hellas affords Remy use of a compass and a military-style datapad, which logs knowledge gained through interactions with his surroundings and the scattered inhabitants of Hadia. It's a decision that not only ups the immersion, mimicking Remy's own disorienting experience and scant starting knowledge, but one inspired by adventure games of the 1990s, which helped the dev team fall in love with the medium. It also means that environments and NPCs are, as the game's creative and art director, Jonathan Jacques Bellatate, puts it, not there simply to decorate, but to communicate. And as you discover more about the wounds on Hadia's landscape and society, snippets of information form a web, gradually connecting the dots between Remy's own motives and the events that fractured the land. Speaking of which, as enjoyable as taking out hapless hollow walkers and exploring the ancient and contemporary ruins of Hadia is, Hellas doesn't shy away from, nor glorify, the rippling human impact of war. Alongside refugee Remy's quest to reunite with his family, the game quickly highlights how propaganda from opposing Palamist and Sabinian factions and their us versus them mentality perpetuates a painful cycle in which nobody wins. Hadians, both in in-person encounters and in recovered documents, reflect on their situations through the lens of losses, heavy generational trauma, and deflected blame. Even discounting the supernatural incident underway, it's clear everyone in Hellas is haunted by something. This focus on individual experience and responsibility extends to the way Rogue Factor intends players progress through the game. Very rarely is there just one single solution to challenges you face, including those on the Golden Path. It was essential that the gameplay reflects the maturity of the themes addressed, Jacques Bellatate told PlayStation in a pre-release blog. That's why we didn't want players to simply follow a predefined path without understanding the reasons behind it or grasping the significance of events. Our goal for each player is to engage fully, he added, both emotionally and intellectually, and experience an unforgettable journey. The emotional heart of the game is also hinted at in enemy attributes and combat buffs. Early on, you discover that Hollow Walkers can be tied to a haze entity, which needs to be eliminated before their host can be taken out. The nebulous form and erratic movements of the haze suggest they're tangles of untethered emotion, and this is backed up by their differing colours, attack styles, and the shards they leave behind upon defeat. Characterised as fragments of ecstasy, grief, terror, or rage, shards can be collected and used alongside equipable glyphs to upgrade mysterious ancient weapons at the blacksmith workshop. Interestingly, the one piece of knowledge Remy has about his father is that he was the local blacksmith of the Hadean town of Jova. A final nod to the themes bubbling beneath the surface of Hell Is Us is the limbic energy that sustains both the Hollow Walkers and Remy's accumulated arsenal. Anatomically, the limbic system encompasses the emotional nervous system, regulating memories, feelings, and behaviours. The implication is that balancing or controlling these attributes could be key to unlocking Remy's backstory and resolving his homeland's otherworldly occupation. Uncover more of the weighty mysteries of Hadia in Hell Is Us, out now on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. For more action, adventure, horror, and everything in between, stick with IGN.